All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight, presented by FanDuel here at The Volume. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope all of you guys had an incredible weekend. The NBA season starts tomorrow. I can't freaking believe it, but it's here, and we have about, 8.5 months of steady basketball coming ahead of us that I'm very, very excited for. Here's the plan for this week. So this morning, I want to touch on the Warriors extensions that took place over the weekend of Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, which are super fascinating on a bunch of levels because a lot of Warriors fans are referring to this as their last dance. I don't necessarily see that as the case, but I want to go into some details there. This afternoon or later this evening, we're going to have another video coming out that's going to be my final season preview. It's just going to essentially be my opportunity to put my final predictions down for the season. Now, as you all know, predictions are a total crapshoot. If we all knew what was going to happen, we all be in Vegas making money gambling. That's not the case. I'm just going to give you guys my best guesses based on my personal view of the game. Get all that stuff nailed down this evening. That's like who I picked to win the title, who I think is going to win the West and the East, and biggest underachiever, biggest overachiever, MVP, that kind of stuff. We're going to get all that stuff down and recorded later on today. And then tomorrow is going to be our first live show of the year. So we'll be going live right after the final buzzer of Lakers Warriors. We have another live show coming this Thursday after the last game of the night on TNT. Wednesday, we'll have an in-depth film breakdown of Tuesday night's games. On that day, you're going to want to make sure that you follow me on Twitter as well, because that's where I'll put all the footage breakdowns and stuff where I actually can use NBA footage. But yeah, today, to start, we're going to be talking about those Warriors extensions. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Volume's YouTube channel so you don't miss any more videos. Follow me on Twitter at @JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements, as well as the footage breakdowns that I was referencing earlier. And then last but not least, if for whatever reason you miss one of these videos and you can't get back over to YouTube to finish them, you can find them wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. So, on that note, let's talk some basketball. Why did the Warriors prioritize Jordan and Andrew? And obviously they did, because these were pretty damn lucrative extensions, and Draymond was also up for an extension and he didn't get one. So that doesn't mean they're not going to sign him to one. We don't know yet. That's still up in the air, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But it's clear that Jordan and Andrew were somewhat of a priority. Now, why is that? I think it's pretty simple. They're young, meaning you don't have to worry about age being a factor in the contract, but they're also already high-level playoff contributors. We're going to do a lot of juxtaposition with the Lakers today because I think it's hilarious to see the gap in management competency and ownership competitiveness between the two. And I'm going to be making some comparisons there. This is not the Lakers betting on Talen Horton-Tucker over Alex Caruso, because Talen Horton-Tucker was not even a contributor yet. He was a bench player for them that had some minor success during stretches when LeBron James and Anthony Davis were hurt in the 2021 season. He was not a proven playoff contributor yet. Alex Caruso was. And in that case, the Lakers misallocated resources, not applying enough value to that. Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins just both had monumentally impactful playoff runs. Andrew Wiggins was probably their second most important player in that run. It was either him or Draymond, depending on who you ask. Jordan Poole, in that playoff run, his first ever playoff run, averaged 17 points per game on 65% true shooting, and was incredible, particularly in that Game 6 in Boston while Steph was on the bench it was either late first or early second when they went on that big run. He was a proven playoff player his first time around. And then Andrew Wiggins, in his combination of defense, guarding the other team's best player, and what he did on offense, attacking closeouts and knocking down threes, incredibly valuable in the playoffs. So they were prioritizing two players that they knew for a fact if they needed them to start an NBA Finals game this year, they'd be ready for it. They'd be capable of doing so, doing it at a high level. That's the difference in investing in that kind of youth versus investing in youth that's more of a gamble, with something like what the Lakers did with Talen Horton-Tucker. In addition to that, these, simply put, are just two clear foundational pieces for the Warriors' future. These are two players that if they're your third or fourth best player, or your second or third best player, and you've got a good enough number one, you can win a lot of basketball games. So it was just a sound investment on that front. And then this was the important part that I wanted to get to. They also have skill sets that are monumentally important in the modern NBA. This is not investing in a guy like DeAndre Ayton, who's obviously one of the best players at his position, but plays a position that carries significantly less value as you get into the playoffs, right? This is not investing in a lower value archetype. This is, I'm getting a 3-and-D wing that's a lot more than a 3-and-D wing, and I'm getting Jordan Poole, which we're going to get to in a second. Let's talk about, if you guys remember over the course of the summer, what are the two things that I talked about on both ends of the floor that are the most important skills in basketball right now with the way the game has changed? On the offensive end, I said pull-up shooting, right? Because that's the best counter to any coverage that any team unleashes on you. Well, Jordan Poole, in his third season, shot 38% on 5 pull-up jumpers per game. As a kid, he's a kid and he's doing that. It's going to only get better from there. And then what was another specific offensive trait that I spent a lot of time talking about over this summer? Rim pressure. And I talked about all the value that comes from rim pressure, not just collapsing the defense so you can kick the threes, not just making layups, which are a high efficiency shot, but the way it can impact things in terms of offensive rebounding and changing matchups by drawing help. Well, Jordan Poole averaged, according to NBA.com, 8.2 drives per game last year, which was second best on the team behind Steph. And I always try to compare the tracking data or the metrics that we have to what I see with my eyes. And persistently, what I've told you guys about Jordan Poole is what I like about him that makes him so different from Steph and Klay is he is so damn fast that he can beat people off the dribble all game long. Now, Steph, he leads the team in drives. He gets to the rim all the time. But he does that by weaponizing his shooting. He's not just blowing by people with quickness that often, unless he's getting a big on a switch. Jordan Poole has that kind of burst. He's very valuable to the team on the offensive end because of his ability to get downhill. And then obviously he's a great shooter, shot 38% on 5 catch-and-shoot threes per game. But the point is Jordan Poole gives me 2 of the most important offensive skills in the modern NBA. Getting downhill to the rim and knocking down pull-up jump shots. So they're investing in an archetype of player that is proven to be super valuable in the NBA, in the modern NBA. Future-proof, if you want to call it that. And then we go over to Andrew Wiggins. I think he's one of the 5 best perimeter defenders in basketball. What did I say is the most important skill on defense in the modern NBA right now? Perimeter defense. Because containing the ball prevents the team from getting into their driving kick and getting the role players involved. Andrew Wiggins and what he did to contain Luka Doncic and to contain Jason Tatum threw both of those teams wildly out of whack in their offense. That's how valuable Andrew Wiggins is because of what he can do as a perimeter defender. And Andrew Wiggins also can knock down pull-up jump shots. He was 36% on 4 pull-up jumpers per game, which is completely respectable. He also was third on the team in drives per game, with 7 drives per game. We talked about that in some of our preseason breakdowns, how strong and athletic he is and with the way he rips through to the basket and how guys just can't hold on to him anymore because Andrew is finally starting to come to terms with how dominant of an athlete he is and how he can weaponize that in a basketball game. Then he also shot 41% on catch-and-shoot threes. So the bottom line is these are 2 really smart investments from the Warriors. They are modern basketball players that bring very important modern skills. They're young, so they're smart to invest in the respect that they're not going to diminish in value over the course of the contract. And they're absolutely pillars of the franchise's future. They needed to be prioritized. So the question comes, where does Draymond fit in all of this? And it's an interesting question. First of all, let's just start up front. Draymond is one of the 3 most valuable players on this team. He had some rough moments in this playoff run, but there's no question that what he does on the defensive end of the floor for them is immensely valuable. He missed 29 straight games with a back injury this season, and the team went 16-13, and their defense sucked compared to what it was. And Steph Curry couldn't get the same high-quality shots that he used to get because Draymond does a lot for them on the offensive end, even though it doesn't look like he does sometimes. And there are times where Draymond does hurt them on offense. That goes without saying. But there are also times where he makes it work. Those were his good, bad playoff games in this playoff run when he's not succeeding in some of the things he does on offense, screening really hard, making good decisions in the role, looking to score just enough to keep the defense honest, hunting Steph for looks off the ball. Those sorts of things, when he does those things, he's actually a good offensive player. He just had some games in this playoff run where he didn't do those things. But then he did them when it mattered in the NBA Finals. After he called his shot, he was playing like trash, and they were down 2-1. And he was like, I'm playing like trash. Oh, by the way, CJ McCollum, or whoever the heck he was talking trash to, I think it was CJ. He was like, yeah, by the way, they're going to be ringless just like you. We're going to win this series. And he put his money where his mouth was. He guarded Jaylen Brown and locked his ass up. And then he had his best offensive game of the series when they needed it in Game 6 on the road. He's more valuable to winning basketball games right now than Jordan Poole is. That doesn't mean that it wasn't a smart investment for them to sign Jordan Poole. It absolutely was, for all the reasons we said earlier. But don't underestimate Draymond's value in all of this. It's just a reality of their financial predicament. It would cost Joe Lacob hundreds of millions of dollars to retain Draymond as well in all of this. And that makes it a tough decision. And so when you're looking at the layout, and I got Jordan Poole that I got to pay. I got, Andrew Wiggins I got to pay. I got Draymond I got to pay. I got Klay Thompson that I'm going to have to pay soon. You look at that, and it is complicated. And you look at that, and you see Draymond and Klay are obviously, Draymond because of his age, and he's starting to experience some physical decline. He had some back issues last year. And then you've got Klay Thompson, who's had 2 serious injuries in the last couple of years. You look at that, and you go, they will if you sign both of those guys to 4-year extensions, they will likely, during those extensions, experience significant physical declines and not be as valuable in the tail end of those contracts. That's just the reality of Father Time. That's not an insult. And so when you're looking at the layout, you have to make some tough decisions. That doesn't mean they won't still be productive basketball players on those deals. It doesn't mean they won't deserve the money. It just means that it has to be factored in when they're making those kinds of decisions. That means the Warriors were right to pay the young guys and to try to negotiate discounted deals for Draymond and Klay. That's just good business. You can't fault them for that. But here's why I don't, because a lot of Warriors fans have been going the route of they're going to trade these guys. I don't think they're going to trade either of them. And the main reason why is I think Klay's going to take a significant discount to remain with the Warriors. First of all, they gave him a max deal right after he tore his ACL. He's experienced a vote of confidence from the franchise. He's making over $40 million this year and over $40 million next year. He's doing just fine. That and his identity is very much tied up with this franchise, even more so than Draymond's is, in my opinion. You can't even fathom the idea that Klay would play for somebody else. So I think Klay, as a kind of as a return of a grateful return for what happened after he tore his ACL, I could see him taking a discounted deal. So I think he'll stay. But Draymond is way too important to their title chances in the immediate future for them to trade. That's the issue, because Draymond has legit reasons to maybe want to be elsewhere. For starters, he's been the guy who was the Scottie Pippen of this particular dynasty. He is the guy that has been consistently underpaid relative to his value. This year, he's going to make just under $26 million. That'll be the most he's ever made with the Warriors. And I would argue he's more valuable to them winning than Klay Thompson, and Klay Thompson has been making over 40. So obviously Draymond has reason to be like, hey, at what point do I get taken care of in all of this? That's a realistic concern of his. And so I could see him after this deal ends. I think he'll opt out after this year. He'll opt out of the 27 and look for a deal. I could see him looking for one last long-term deal. And if the Warriors try to offer him a discount, I could see him going elsewhere to get that money. So then it becomes, he's leaving, if that's the case. If he's leaving, do you trade him? You can't trade him because his value is so unique to the Warriors that you're not going to get a ton back. It's not like you're going to get a superstar back. So the reality is whatever they do trading Draymond hurts them in that particular season. I think later today, we're going to do our season preview. I am going to say that I think the Warriors are going to win the title. I think they're the best team in the league right now. They have the best chance to win. If they trade Draymond overnight, even if they get Miles Turner back, overnight they go from my number one to behind the Bucks, behind the Clippers, behind the Celtics. That's how important Draymond is to what they do. And I get it's been frustrating. I get that he signed with Clutch and he talks about LeBron a lot, and for some reason that bothers Warriors fans. I get that he punched a teammate when he had a bad moment. But he is vitally important to the Warriors winning basketball games. That is just a fact. And so they will not trade him, knowing that it actively and significantly handicaps their chance to win. So what will probably end up happening, if I had to guess, is that he finishes this season with a smile on his face, creating no drama. Then he approaches the front office and asks for a deal. They probably offer him something too small. I believe he will opt out of that deal and probably sign to go play elsewhere for somewhere in that 4 to 80, 4 for 80, 4 for 100, somewhere between 20 and 25 million per year for another 4 years somewhere else next summer. Some team that views him as a culture changer, a guy that can come in and overnight completely revamp their defense. It's just the reality of the business of it all. And again, it's kind of unfortunate because I view it as it's kind of insulting to what Draymond has done in his years here. But I understand where they're coming from a business perspective of needing to pay all these other guys and the realities of the luxury tax and the fact that if you pay Draymond $25 million a year, it really costs you almost $100 a year. And it's just complicated that way. But yeah, that's my guess. I guess that Klay takes a discount and stays. Draymond finishes the season, opts out, and then signs a long-term deal elsewhere because he deserves his freaking money, man. He's seeking another lucrative contract because he's been underpaid. And he has every right to do so. I don't think Warriors fans should judge him for being disloyal if he decides to leave, because he would be leaving because he's the guy who got the short end of the stick in this whole thing. I wanted to talk about Joe Lacob for a second because, again, it's just I wanted to just put it juxtaposed with Jeannie Buss. Obviously, this $500,000 payroll that he's going to pay this season or next season borders on insanity. And it's obviously an unrealistic standard to hold other owners to. Like when we ask owners to spend, it's not like we're asking them to spend $500,000. We're asking them just to spend reasonably when you have a chance to win a championship. But even with that adjusted standard, it's still hilarious juxtaposed with Jeannie Buss and the Lakers. Joe Lacob and Bob Myers valued the contribution of their role players. They recognized Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins for their invaluable contribution to winning in this playoff run. They saw the basketball and saw how those two guys were so important to them winning. Jeannie and Rob undervalued their role players and flipped two quality starters for Russ, because what they saw when they won the title in 2020 was LeBron James and Anthony Davis getting a lot of dunks and blocks and knocking down big threes, and they thought LeBron and AD carried us to the title. And they failed to see that it was the fact that every single one of their rotation players, not named Rajon Rondo, was like 6'6" or bigger, could defend multiple positions and attack closeouts and just played really smart basketball. It was a basketball team that won the title, not LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Joe Lacob went deep into the tax to retain both of those young role players. The Bulls offered Alex Caruso $9 million per year, and Robin Jeannie was like, "Goodbye, Alex. Good luck in Chicago," for $9 million. And I get it, he's not Jordan Poole, but it's $9 million, man. And I get it, even with the tax, it's like $27 million or something like that. Still completely inexcusable, especially when you factor in that they invested in a young player who wasn't ready to contribute yet. Alex Caruso started Game 6 of the finals and was one of their most important players. He was the plus-minus guy that all the lineups that he was in killed. When they went small with AD at the 5 and had Alex Caruso with LeBron, they obliterated teams. It just represents a fundamental lack of understanding of what wins basketball games. You need some star talent with lots of good complementary pieces that fulfill the vital responsibilities of a basketball team. There was a list going around on Twitter last week. I don't know if you guys saw it, but it was like 6 or 7 players long. And it was all players that were on the Lakers roster last year that are now out of the NBA entirely. That's why people are concerned about the decision makers for the Lakers. Jeannie Buss did an interview last week. I can't remember exactly who it was with. But in it, she insinuated that she was targeted for being a woman about her inner circle. And she specifically said, like, hey, why don't they question who's in, Mark Cuban's inner circle? And the host rightfully pushed back and was like, well, they question Jerry Jones too. The issue is not the fact that it's your inner circle and you're a female. It's the fact that you're employing family members, and these family members are making family members, friends, like picking based on personal relationships rather than expertise. And then those people that you have personal relationships making bad decisions for Jerry Jones on the football field and for Jeannie Buss on the basketball court. That's like when you're wondering why they question your inner circle, that's why. That half the roster from last year is no longer on the team. Or no longer in the league entirely. When you look at Joe Lacob and he's winning and investing in young role players, and you let a young role player walk for $9 million, they're going to question you about that. When you consistently and persistently make confusing basketball decisions, and they know that your inner circle is Kurt Rambis, who was a player coach whose only success came within the Lakers franchise, and he was famous for going into Frank Vogel's coaches meeting last year and saying, more DeAndre Jordan, please. That'll fix all our problems. When that happens, when Kobe's former agent, who, as we discussed, is more of like a snake oil salesman who's trying to sell bad basketball decisions to the Laker fan base, when he is completely uninterested in the guys that led the types of players that led you to a title in 2020, they're going to question your decision making. When it's bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, one that leads to the best team in the world in 2020 being literally a play-in team with LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the roster less than 2 years later, when they're projected to win less than 50 games, when they look as bad as they did last year, they're going to question that. They're going to be like, okay, your decision makers are your best friend and his husband, Kurt Rambis, your Kobe's former agent, and then 2 of your nephews. They're going to be like, maybe they need to have somebody in that front office that is a basketball expert, and that's his only connection to you. The only connection he has to you is that he submitted a resume that discusses how good he is in his history making basketball decisions. That's why he works for you. When that is the case, they won't blame you anymore, Jeannie. They will blame that guy. But when it's your friends and family that work for you and the bad decisions happen, they're going to look at you as having made mistakes surrounding yourself with people who aren't up to the task. It's about basketball at its core. Winning cures everything. Do you think they will say anything to you if you guys just won basketball games? You're failing to win basketball games with LeBron James and Anthony Davis on the roster. They have every right to be concerned the way that they are. And again, I know that's kind of a whole other thing, but it's so interesting to see that juxtaposed with the Warriors situation. It's just really interesting to see that juxtaposed. All right, guys, that is all I have for this morning. Remember, later this afternoon or this evening, we're going to be talking our season preview stuff and just getting some picks nailed down, and then we'll have our first live show on Tuesday. As always, I sincerely appreciate your support, and I'll see you guys next time.